Hi, welcome to the second session of the Stopwatches. These are fun presentations, and I hope you enjoy them. And I will be looking at the chat to keep up with what's going on there. But if you can hold your messages or questions till the end, and then we'll have the speakers answer those when they are ready. All right, and our first speaker is Sara. Come on in. And then you'll have to share the screen.
Okay, and I can take this.
Yes, yeah, and share your screen. And
okay. Let me just get this up. Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. I am Sara Hess. Welcome to Cracking Open a Slam Door, Communicating Online Resource Restrictions and Alternatives to Student, Alumni, and Community Entrepreneurs. So a quick note about my perspective on this topic. I am definitely not a lawyer or an expert in negotiating license terms. But what I am is the business and entrepreneurship librarian on my campus. So I'm the liaison to the academic and experiential entrepreneurship programs on my campus. So in the course of my work, I am often asked about access and acceptable use restrictions in our license agreements by students, faculty, and community members. This often looks like, so I'll be in an instruction session or talking to community members participating in one of our Launch Boxes programs. And I'll be talking about, how great all of our resources are, how the university subscribes to, all this market research content, all this data content, all this great stuff. And then inevitably, particularly in instruction sessions, a student will raise their hand and say, hey, are we going to have access to this after I graduate? Or, hey, can I use this to launch my small business? And I have to be like, well, no. And every single time I feel like I flub this. I feel like I'm not super confident in communicating this information. And I feel like I sort of let them down in that moment. So my goal here is really focused on improving how I communicate these terms to the populations I work with. So what I did was took a look at other institutions' research guides related to entrepreneurship and small business topics. My questions for this include, how do academic library websites communicate these restrictions, as well as what alternatives are offered on those websites? So what publicly accessible resources are featured on entrepreneurship and small business guides. In order to do this, I identified a list of institutions. So I looked at AAU and AAPU, so Association of Public and Land Grant University member institutions. I came up with a list of 219 US institutions. And then I went to each of their library websites and built a list of any generally focused guide related to entrepreneurship and small business. My reasoning behind this is that an alum or a community member is far more likely to look at a guide that's labeled entrepreneurship than one that's labeled something like Management 485. From there, I looked for any access notes about access or acceptable use. And then I also identified any of those publicly available resources featured on the guides. So what I found is that the majority of entrepreneurship guides do include at least one note about access. So it was about 86.8% of those 106 guides that I identified. There are a couple of ways that these access restrictions are communicated. So they often take the form of, less often take the form of guide-wide access notes. So this would be something along the lines of, many of the resources presented on this guide are only available to current students, faculty, and staff of this university. A slightly higher percentage had sections that had their own access notes. So this would be something along the lines of library subscribed resources, which isn't as specific as you would maybe want to see in terms of an access note, or something labeled something like free resources. I also took a look at guides that featured this information in the title of specific resources. So this included icons that indicate that certain resources are only available to current affiliates of the university or are open access or available on the open web. And then the highest percentage came in access notes that were provided in the description of specific resources. So one thing I want to know about this is I took an intentionally broad view of defining an access note in that case. So a guide counted for this area if at least one resource included the word free in the description, like this is a free resource. So the fact that only 52.4% of guides had a note like that, and that the other percentages were lower, is definitely something that I want to explore further. Almost all of the guides did include at least one publicly accessible resource, so about 96% of the guides. So I identified a list of topics I was looking to categorize those resources in. The most common was market research resources, with about 62.3% of guides including something that focused on market research. The most common resource for both market and industry research, two of the real building blocks of business information, were the US Census Bureau. So by far the most common publicly available resource featured was Census Bureau data, which really isn't a surprise. It's really great data, particularly for market research. For topics related to the mechanics of starting a business, like getting started with the process or business planning, the by far most common resource was the Small Business Administration. So going forward, there are a couple of things I want to look at, and I'm just moving that so the people in the room can see the slide. So I do want to do a deeper analysis of the content of those access notes that are provided. I wasn't really able to get very deep into that this time around, so that's something that I want to explore further. I also want to look to see if there are any commonalities among institutions that have this kind of information. So our public universities or land-grant universities, which have that extra outreach mission, often in their mission statement, more likely to provide this kind of information. And beyond that, I definitely want to clean up the list of the most commonly featured publicly available resources, both for my own use and for the use of anybody who is looking to provide more of that on their entrepreneurship guides. So that is it for what I have at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions people have about what I looked at, as well as, if you want to email me about what I've been working on, I'm happy to answer those as well.
George and his. George and Rebekah. Hey, George,
Sure.
Can you share your screen?
All right. And I think this is about ready to go as soon as I start. So
Okay.
let's see.
So yes, and there we go.
Can you see that?
Yes. Great. Thank you. No sound. George, we don't have any sound. I don't know. You can fix that.
Okay.
Good job. Technology, we love it.
I'm glad I'm in person now.
So George, do you want to just kind of go through your slides or just talk about
This is George again. I'm going to try one more time here.
Okay,
Kind of
great.
expected the slides to, but let's. Okay, just give me a second here.
If the slides have audio, there is a checkbox on, I couldn't see that. Something. If the slides have audio, there's a checkbox on the share screen to enable something. Hey, George? There's a checkbox on your share screen option that should have a video. Somebody had sent a text saying if you can look in the chat.
Right.
Videos.
Enable screen.
Audio.
Yeah, my apologies, folks. I kind of expected these to be distributed.
Yeah, me too. Sorry about this. Everybody, this is one of those learning curves of the virtual hybrid conference. So,
right. I think now where's the just to communicate with everyone, Beth, how do I share this audio in terms of where I'm looking on my screen?
If the slides
George, when you hit share screen at the bottom left corner, do you see audio? There's a checkbox where you have to do share audio.
Let's see. I just have a share screen panel, a green button. I'm not seeing
there's
anything
a
about
little-
audio.
When you click on it, does it give you options?
Yeah,
When
I think I
click-
see the share sound. Let's try that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, whoever came in.
All right.
Welcome, Electronic Resources for Alumni, a case study at Auburn University with George Stachokas and Rebekah Lahue. Auburn University Libraries, our Dean of Libraries charged us to provide electronic resources for alumni, and thus we have the following goals. Invest in postgraduate student success by providing helpful information resources, enhance the visibility of the libraries to alumni, and recruit potential donors in collaboration with the Development Office and AU Alumni Association. Our approach is informed by research. We've reviewed 118 academic library websites. All of the academic library members of the Association of Research Libraries plus Stanford University. Rebekah and I conducted this research between November 18, 2020 and April 2, 2021. We identified web pages and LibGuides provided for use by alumni on library websites. We also identified any publicly available information regarding electronic resources made available to alumni. Our general findings for these websites include that 109 of the 118 libraries provided a web page or LibGuide listing library services for alumni. 60 of those libraries provided web pages or LibGuides that included links to electronic resources. 48 of these libraries provided links to paid electronic resources, roughly 41% of libraries in the sample. So this is really our target group. Now, regarding the level of service for these 48 libraries, 39 of the libraries addressed alumni on their homepage via direct links or obvious references. 35 libraries provided research support information for alumni. 32 libraries provided tech support information. Only 20 libraries provided unique links or separate web pages for library donation information specifically targeted to alumni. Now, in terms of the paid electronic resources by library type, we noticed some interesting differences. For example, if we look at all of the libraries, there was a range from 1 electronic resource to 141, with an approximate average of 21 per library, and 12 was the median. And this goes for all 48 libraries. But among the 25 public libraries, again, we see relatively high numbers, but again, for the private numbers, now there was a real division between the Canadian and US public. So the Canadian and private research libraries overall seem to offer more electronic resources for alumni than public universities in the United States. And Canadian research libraries far outstrip US research libraries overall in what they offer to alumni. And you can see this in the chart. Now, regarding alumni services overall, I had conducted an earlier study in 2015, 2016, where I only uncovered 190 paid electronic resources offered in total. This number has increased in a relatively short period of time to 1,014. There has also been a change in the vendors that are most prominently displayed or are offered by these libraries. For example, 4 or 5 years ago, the numbers were 23 and 23 as the highest amounts for EBSCO and ProQuest respectively. Now it's Adam Matthew at 319 and Alexander Street Press at 130, so quite a change in the vendor.
Hello everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. I'm Rebekah, Lahue, and I will be discussing the remainder of our presentation. Auburn University Libraries plans to provide a number of different electronic resources to our alumni patrons. These include annual reviews, Adam Matthew collections, CQ Press, Project Muse, Sage Premiere, Sage Research Methods and Sage Research Methods Video, Sage Business Cases, and other freely available electronic resources such as the Directory of Open Access Journals. Research for this project continues with preliminary studies on 117 ARL member libraries as well as Stanford University concluding in spring 2021. A Qualtrics survey will be distributed to these 118 academic institutions to further evaluate their alumni programs and services and the usage for these services if known. The time and effort needed from library personnel to manage these resources will also be evaluated along with if any plans are being considered to modify these efforts. The AU Alumni Access Project team is comprised of different personnel from various different departments across the library. These persons included the Collection Strategist and Acquisitions Librarian, the Acquisition Specialist, the Head of Technical Services, the Library Development Officer, the Head of Systems, and others. Project finalization will continue through consultation and approval from internal AU library stakeholders as well as external input groups. These stakeholders include the Dean of AU Libraries, the Auburn University Alumni Association, the Marketing and Public Relations Sector of AU Libraries, the Office of Information Technology, AU Library Leadership, and the Collection Development and Advisory Groups. Project completion is targeted for December 2021, with several tasks related to the Auburn University Alumni Access LibGuide and internal webpage infrastructure being finalized. Other tasks to be completed include investigating options with OCLC to separate authentication for alumni, the completion of the Adam Matthew LibGuide, the completion of the Alumni Services LibGuide to include direct links to electronic resources, to update borrower privileges and other online updates to library web pages, to cross-reference links to other web pages on the libraries and alumni association websites, and to complete the plan of operations for library alumni services to include customer service, troubleshooting, alerts, and privileges. Collaborations between the library's development and the AU Alumni Association will include advertising methods such as publications through the AU Alumni Magazine and communications across campus concerning these newly established alumni services. Other advertisements will include announcements via email and online newsletters relevant to university units. Thank you for attending Auburn University Libraries Electronic Resources for Alumni Stopwatch Session. Please stay tuned for a follow-up Q&A period. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Beth, do you want to take it from here?
Great, thank you. Thank you. So now our next person is going to be Laura. Laura, do you want to share your screen?
Yep, I'm going to kick off my recorded.
All right, perfect,
All right.
Thank you.
Or I'm going to attempt to, we'll see.
Okay, yes, attempting is a good thing to say.
My name is Laura Morse. I'm the Director of Library Systems and Support at Harvard University.
Laura, the screen's not showing.
I know, I'm sorry. I have an arm injury, so I'm mousing with my alternative hand.
Oh, no.
But give me 1 second. I'm going to kick off the screen share first, and then I'll
Okay, perfect.
kick off the presentation.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Laura Morse. I'm the Director of Library Systems and Support at Harvard University. I'm also the co-chair of the NISO ODI Standing Committee. It is my great pleasure today to talk to you about how you can participate in the NISO Open Discovery Initiative and ensure open discovery for your users. I'll begin with a little background on the Open Discovery Initiative. The NISO Open Discovery Initiative started in 2011. The first version of the recommended practice was released in 2014 and was updated in 2020. The recommended practice addresses several areas: assessment of the level of content provider participation, streamlining processes to encourage more participation, fair linking, and usage statistics. Each stakeholder group benefits from conformance with the ODI recommended practice. It makes it easier for libraries to understand what's included. Content providers have benefits of increased usage and decreasing cancellations if their content is available in the library's main discovery system. Discovery providers' participation in ODI increases transparency, which improves customer satisfaction and retention. I've talked about 3 major stakeholder groups having benefits for ODI participation. How do these benefits interrelate with each other? First, all stakeholders, discovery providers, content providers, and libraries are all part of the ODI process. Every group has an impact on other groups' success. Like any good 3-legged stool, we need all 3 parts working together. Communication needs to happen between and among each group to ensure ongoing success as the discovery ecosystem is ever-changing. Each stakeholder group should complete a conformance statement to disclose their current level of conformance. This should be reviewed regularly. The ODI standard helps define and facilitate open communication about the responsibilities each group has to each other. It truly is a reciprocal process. The initial ODI recommended practice, released in 2014, had the requirement of conformance statements for 2 of the stakeholder groups, discovery providers and content providers. It was a bit embarrassing to realize after the fact that the RP neglected to require conformance for my own stakeholder group, libraries. The 2020 revision added a conformance statement for libraries as well as other updates. So why are library conformance statements important? First, it helps ensure that your library has optimized your discovery system for users. It helps ensure that all of the desired content that you have purchased is available in your discovery system. It helps you when following up with vendor partners on their conformance to be able to show that you too are an active participant in open discovery. It establishes protocols for training library staff and end users. We ask that all library partners complete and publish a library conformance statement. I know that initial reaction to disclosing conformance openly can be one of concern that your institution may not be fully conformant at the outset. Perfection is really an aspiration. It is not expected to be a reality in your first conformance review. This is an iterative process that may take years. Discovery environments are ever changing. Iterating over the conformance statements can help you identify gaps for resolution. You can post an updated statement at any time. Just a reminder also that sometimes perfect is the enemy of the good. Our advice is to disclose conformance early and update often. At this point, you may be wondering what you need to disclose as part of your library's conformance statement. The recommended practice includes general measures as well as measures related to various aspects of configuration, communication, documentation, and training. Once you complete your conformance statement, it should be posted on your public website. Share the link to the conformance statement with the ODI Standing Committee. We maintain a directory of completed conformance statements. For each measure in the recommended standard, you will choose one of the following responses. Y if you are conformant with the paragraph of the recommended practice. P if you are partially conformant. N if you are not conformant with the recommendation at this time. Yes, partial, or no. Seems easy, right? Sometimes determining the answer for your institution can require a fair amount of information gathering. The ODI Steering Committee is here to support you. We developed interactive workshops to help content providers and libraries complete their conformance statements. The workshop reviews each item on the conformance checklist. A provided worksheet can be used to note your conformance level or to capture more details on what needs to be reviewed to determine conformance. Please consider attending a workshop in the future. We do have upcoming ODI conformance workshops scheduled. I know that some folks attending this session may be content providers. We have a conformance workshop scheduled for November 29th, 2021 for content providers. We'll have our second workshop for library on January 19th, 2022. Please see the NISO website for more information and to register for these workshops. The ODI Standing Committee looks forward to supporting your important work on conformance. We do have lots of resources available on our website to help with completing conformance statements and learning more about ODI. Please visit the ODI website to see general resources about the ODI recommended practice. Sign up for our mailing list and check out our biannual ODI updates. Thank you so much for attending. Please contact the ODI Standing Committee with any questions at any time.
All right. Thank you guys for having your videos ready. I really appreciate it. And we will now open the floor for questions. So if there's questions on chat, please go ahead and send those in. And I'll look in the audience and see if there's anybody that wants to ask a question. Anybody got? Yeah, great. And I'll have to repeat it. So.
Great presentation, and I really think helpful that you're highlighting complexity conversations with entrepreneurs. And I'm just curious, you touched on this a little bit in terms of your next steps, but were there anything from your findings that has informed sort of your practice in terms of your guides and that sort of thing that you've changed already? I know you talked about sort of doing that the next step, but I'm just wondering if there's anything you've already changed based on.
So okay, go ahead. You want to go ahead? Go ahead.
I can just.
Yeah.
So the question was whether I have already changed anything, whether my findings have informed my practice. So I haven't had an opportunity to make those changes yet. Of course, we are in the middle of a very busy semester. That's something that I definitely plan to do over the December winter break before students return to campus in January. And that is going to include refining some of the messaging on my own guides. My institution is a little bit unique in that we do have a separate guide for Pennsylvania entrepreneurs, separate from the one that we use for our academic audiences. But I do want to, again, refine some of the messaging on my own guides, as well as feature some of the resources that I had no idea about until I started looking at other institutions' guides. Part of why I want to get to work refining that list is so I can share it out with the business librarianship community, because there's a lot there that I had absolutely no idea existed and definitely want to include on my guides going forward.
Okay, and the next question is for George. George, They,
Yes.
and Rebekah, they're wondering if a lot of the work has been, how much work was needed for licensing and additional fees for the alumni access.
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you. Essentially, not much because we have chosen license agreements as per our dean that already allow alumni access. So I think that folks should probably go back and check their license agreements. Anything published by Sage or CQ Press is usually accessible to alumni by default in license agreements. Also, Adam Matthew collections are usually accessible to alumni without any additional fees or payment. Now, we have been looking at ArtStore and JStore and working with Ithaca to possibly license those. You know, we have what for Auburn is a new subscription to another resource. And so we tried to get 2 years of free access, but we don't know if we're going to be able to do that or not. So we're actually able to provide a lot of access to alumni without spending additional money on licensing, at least for now. And if the program works out, we'll add more to it, perhaps.
There's somebody is asking, which is an interesting question, saying retiring access, retiree access is a hot topic at her institution and is running into some issues. Has there been any success at Auburn for negotiating retiree access?
You know, not at this time. That's an interesting topic because again, we do have an issue with emeritus professors, if you will. Like I believe that at some institutions, this may not always be true at Auburn, but at a lot of institutions, if someone can be given a login by their IT department or unit, usually, they just get access. There isn't really a means of policing that. So vendors, they can't really determine whether someone is retired or not if they have university credentials. So I think that there may be some. Now I have to be careful in what I say here because this is being recorded. I believe that we're in compliance. I believe we're in full compliance with all of our license agreements, but there's always a chance that there could be someone who has login credentials that we don't know about. If that answers your question, and thank you.
Another one for Sarah. Sarah, do the Entrepreneurship Guides at Penn State get more use or less than the guides for students?
So I have not checked the statistics on that recently. I believe that the guides for students probably do get a little bit more use just because I feature them in my instruction sessions so often. And also because over the course of the pandemic, I've had a lot more contact with student entrepreneurs than I have with community entrepreneurs just by virtue of who is able to be in both the virtual and physical spaces. So those statistics probably also look a little bit different right now than they looked, 2 years ago.
Great. Any other questions? All right. I want to thank our speakers, thank the audience, the virtual audience, and the audience here, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.
Thanks.